Are you feeling a sudden discontentment with your life that was once filled with joy? Are you experiencing an unexplainable need for a midlife change? If so, you're not alone. Emotional fitness expert Natasha Sharma is here. I like that title. To talk about why you may be feeling this way. So let's talk midlife crisis. What is a midlife crisis? Is this a real thing, or is this the thing we see on TV and in the movies?
I think it's definitely a thing. I don't know that I'd call it a crisis. I think of it more of a transition, really, because, and we have a few of them, but this is probably one of the most pivotal ones. Yeah. And there's a lot of research and data to support this, that we, somewhere around 40 or early 40s, begin to experience like a bit of a slump and a feeling of almost like not being satisfied, like life is a little bit anticlimactic, because by then we've tasted enough of the world. We have often achieved many of the things we've set out to do work-wise, family-wise, and then we're kind of feeling almost a now what? And what's really happening is that there's a shift that's taking place, and it's kind of a long shift. It can sometimes take years, but what's really happening is that there's a shift in the value system that we have, and we move from this sort of early stage or first part stage of being very focused on learning and acquiring and competing and establishing like status and sort of stability. And then we shift more to compassion, relationships, and community. And it's the gap between these two sort of states that causes this. It's that transition, and it's not very comfortable. So I think that's why people call it kind of a crisis.
Yeah. Okay, so there's this discomfort. So you say we move to sort of building, learning, all of the things, to all of a sudden it's like, oh, we got all of our goals, now what? Do you think that this is also the point where people start to drop their like value on other people's expectations about themselves?
I think that's probably the biggest component of it, is that we move from being externally driven. And this is all very natural. This is very organic and part of sort of human development. And this is what we're understanding now through data, which is really fascinating. And it's universal, too. So this isn't just like one part of the world type of thing. It's kind of appropriate, almost in a way, to be more concerned in the first part of our lives with other people's expectations and that approval seeking that we have, until, you know, at some point there is this organic shift to doing things far more for ourselves and not because of other people's perceptions. And there's this quote, if I can read it, from Brene Brown's new book, Atlas of the Heart. Amazing, amazing book. She says, it's constant cringe when we first start seeing ourselves through other people's eyes, and it stays that way until we get to midlife and fall apart before we realize it takes far too much energy to try to manage other people's perceptions of us.
Very interesting. So I want to talk, we just stop. And I feel like that's liberating, but you're saying there's discomfort with that. Where's the discomfort come from? Like, shouldn't that be an exciting time? Like, we don't care what anyone else thinks anymore.
Right.
I'm living for me now, right? You've done all the things you were supposed to do, everything society expected. Maybe you pushed out a couple of kids. Now it's like, okay, now I get to go back to myself. But there is discomfort in that because...
Totally, and it's such a good question, because if something feels good, and that's actually very key, because even though the transition is hard, the other side of it, once you move through that, the studies show that life is much more peaceful and content. It's just a different kind of satisfaction. The reason it's hard is because we're undoing a sense of who we are. Like, that whole value system is shifting, and change is not comfortable. We don't like it. So we experience, it's that change, it's that shift that of transitioning that feels, that's why it doesn't feel good.
Give us some tips for how to navigate. How do we navigate that? We're going to go through it. We're going to be in a situation where it's like, things are changing now. I got to figure out the way forward. How do we navigate that?
So, I mean, recognize the signs. So a lot of people report feeling bored all of a sudden, less satisfied with life.
I wish. I want some boredom in my life.
Right? It's kind of...
Oh,
and and then when we're not familiar with it, when we get it all of a sudden, and it's not because we run out of things to do, it's because they're just
it's a malaise. It's a general malaise, right?
What's filling us up is changing.
Got it.
So it's not so much that we run out of things to do, it's just that our interests are changing, and we may not feel as satisfied, or will we ever feel excited about anything again. So people report feeling low mood, you know, kind of just, I don't know who I am and where I'm going anymore.
Yeah.
So the key is to just kind of go with that. Don't fight the discomfort, because you'll feel more uncomfortable.
Yes.
Try and move through it, but at the same time, get to know yourself and what's happening for you, and start doing things, because it's going to happen eventually anyway, for yourself, like for the joy of it, for the pure fun of it, as opposed to for approval, awards, recognition.
Oh my gosh, really good. And what I like telling everyone that it can be uncomfortable. So if you're in it, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Feel the discomfort, and then be quiet and still, and figure out what direction you want to go in and what you're all about anymore.
Exactly.
In this stage in your life. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Really good info, Natasha. Thank you for talking to us about this.